Good morning, everybody. It's Rita Smith, the #1 food fairy. And today I'm going to actually start, this is my third batch this summer, salsa, red tomato salsa. It's such a basic, simple recipe. There's almost nothing in it that's complicated. Tomatoes, onions, green peppers, and garlic, of course salt. I use a little bit of vinegar to get the tomatoes started in the pan just so they don't scorch and burn on the bottom. But the main ingredient in really good, thick, caramelized, tasty salsa is thyme. The time that it takes to let the tomatoes reduce, caramelize, become sweet. People ask me sometimes, is there sugar in this? Of course not. Of course I don't put sugar in my salsa, but the tomatoes themselves will become so sweet with a long, slow cooking, and the flavors become so much deeper and just more delicious. You can use jalapeno peppers, 1 or 2, if you want to make it hotter. I generally speaking go for the milder kind and let my family add chipotle or something if they want to make it hotter. Little kids in particular can't eat really hot salsa. So I try to make a pretty basic, delicious tomato, onion, green pepper, and garlic. I don't even chop my own garlic. I use Durley salsa, but I let it cook when I can for 3 days. If I can get it started on Friday night, let it cook all of Saturday. If it's still liquidy by Saturday night, let it cook overnight to Sunday morning before I put it in jars. Now, I do own a set of really excellent Paterno cookware, which I have been investing in steadily over the years, and it does take a very good non-stick, thick-bottomed, heavy-bottomed pan to be able to cook salsa or pasta sauce or anything overnight or for a couple of days. However, I find that it is totally worth the investment of time. So what I'm gonna walk you through here is the process. It takes about, 15 minutes to put all the vegetables in a pan, and then you just stir them and taste it over time for the next 3 days, and then put it into jars. So it's pretty straightforward and simple, truly delicious, really appreciated as gifts by family and friend. And what a fantastic way to take advantage of Ontario's bounty in July and August and September. It's really a way to appreciate where we live and what we have access to, and isn't it fantastic that we do? So let's get some of it stored away in jars so we can use it in the winter and share it with our loved ones. So I'm back here prepping the tomatoes for the salsa, and I won't spend very much time on this at all. I just want to make sure that you can see how I do a tomato. I cut out the belly button, which is the green part of the top. I quarter it and I throw it in the pan. For those of you who are new to cooking, you might come across some recipes that are like some form of the Spanish Inquisition, where they tell you have to blanch and peel the tomatoes, which is not true. And then they tell you that you need to remove the seeds from the tomato. And hang on one second, I'll show you. I don't know, how much work is that? Like, why would you bother? It's a half of the tomato. Just leave it, okay? So what I do is I pull out the belly button. Okay, that one's split in 2 now. I pull out the belly button. I quarter them. I put them into the pan. If there's a little bit of, let's say there's something, I'll show you on that one. If there's a little bit of something you don't want in your pan at the top of the tomato, I don't even bother to cut out the belly button. I just go like that. Gone, okay? Cut it in quarters and into the pan. And in about, 5 to 7 minutes, I can prepare for salsa dozens and dozens and dozens of tomatoes. They're in, I pull out the belly button, I cut them into a quarter, and I throw them in the pan. Add some salt. I put some vinegar in the bottom so it doesn't scorch. Vinegar actually adds to the taste too. So that's it. If you come across a recipe that tells you you need to blanch and peel the tomatoes, it's baloney. And if you come across a recipe that tells you you need to remove the seeds from the tomato, that is baloney too. Just cut out the top, and frankly, with green tomatoes, I don't even do that. I just quarter them. Cut out the belly button, cut them into quarters, toss them into the pan. That's how you prepare tomatoes for salsa. Any more work than that is just a time-wasting pile of baloney. So just while I'm whistling to the end of about 6 quarts of tomatoes, at least I would say, and I'm putting them into the biggest Paterno stock pot that I have, but it still has the triple ply bottom. I just wanted to talk about the knives that you use to cut tomatoes. This is a pretty good Wusthof serrated knife, but if you don't have a special serrated knife, you just use a steak knife, okay? Any steak knife that is serrated will get the job done, and it is actually kind of fun to let little kids help you clean the tomatoes. Most little kids can handle a steak knife. They're not too sharp. They won't cut themselves, especially if there's a grown-up supervising. And so any serrated knife is good to cut the tomatoes. Okay, what I do is I give them a pretty good shot of salt to start off with. Remember, there's no salt whatsoever on this food product. It's not like it came from a can. And then as it's cooking, I taste it to make sure that there is enough salt, not too much salt. I'm very careful about the amount of salt I put in. And then I'm going to use white vinegar. Sometimes if I have a good inexpensive balsamic vinegar, I use that. But I'm just going to put about an inch. Actually, I'm going to use all this. You put some vinegar in the bottom of the pan, especially if you don't have a great pan. You want to have some liquid. Oh, it smells so good. You want to have some liquid at the bottom of the pan as the tomatoes get started cooking so they don't stick and they don't scorch. So some salt, some vinegar, a big pan of tomatoes. I'm going to put this on 2.5 on my stove, maybe as much as 3. And it's going to cook overnight. I'll probably stir it once during the night. It'll just be bubbling in the morning. It won't even have reduced. It's just like, this is a 48-hour process. But I'm going to fill this pot as close to the top as I can. Put it on the stove at 2.5 or 3, which is the highest really that you ever want to go in a Paterno pan. A little bit of vinegar, a little bit of salt, and let it cook overnight. So when I wake up in the morning, 12 hours of cooking is already done. That's awesome. And then we pick up the process tomorrow morning. Good morning, number 2 on our basic tomato salsa. I cooked this pot full of tomatoes overnight on number 3 on my stove in the largest Paterno stock pot that I have. A couple of times I woke up and gave it a stir, but didn't take any more work than that. And the tomatoes have now reduced to almost half. This pan was full when I put it on the burner yesterday. Let's see, 9 o'clock. I put this on the burner 14 hours ago. And it is now reduced to just about half, which is certainly going to concentrate the flavor and make it more intense, make the salsa thicker. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to chop some onions and green peppers, and I will add garlic to the pan, and we'll let the other vegetables start to marry flavors with the tomatoes. And then actually, because I let the tomatoes cook down overnight, I have a lot more room in the pan. I couldn't possibly have done a batch this large when the tomatoes were in their raw shape. But now that they're concentrated and cooked down, I can add lots more onion, lots more green pepper, lots of chopped garlic, and maybe probably a little bit more salt to accompany the extra vegetables. And then this will start to become salsa. So we'll come back with the chopped vegetables. Okay, so this is the result of chopping 4 green peppers. And as you can see, I chopped them pretty roughly. I don't want them to be too small because they are going to cook down in the pan. However, I still want them to be, visible as what they are in the salsa. So I chopped them pretty roughly. They're not finely diced. This is 4 green peppers and 2 chopped onions. I might, upon putting these in the pan and letting them cook for a couple of hours, I might come to the executive decision I need more onion, which is no problem because I have tons of onion. If I need more peppers, I have to run into town and buy some, but it's okay because today's the farmer's market, so it gives me a good excuse to go to the farmer's market. We'll see how this goes. With 2 full chopped onions, 4 full chopped green peppers, I'm going to scoop them all into the pan and let the pan go for another couple or 3 or 4 hours and see how things are turning out. Oh yeah, for sure. I have tons more room in this pot, way more. I'm going to chop at least 1 more onion, and then the farmer's market opens at 10, so I'll pop into town and get some green peppers. They don't have to come from the farmer's market. They could come from the grocery store, but I like to support the farmers. So here we are about 2/3 full. I can easily manage this pan at like 4/5 full. to let it cook for another whole 24 hours as the vegetables cook down and thicken and the flavors blend. So yeah, I could definitely use more peppers. I'm gonna do another onion right now. I have added one more large chopped onion, and I figure while I've still got lots of room to maneuver in this big giant pot, I'm gonna add the garlic. I do not chop my own garlic. I can on occasion, I do that, but I have to adjust all my recipes because farm garlic is so much sharper and stronger than Durley chopped garlic. This jar is, I'm going to say about 2/3 to 3/4 full, 4/5 maybe. I'm putting all of this. This whole thing is going to go into this salsa recipe. So I will just pop it out of the bottle. That's actually one of the keys to really tasty salsa is a ton of garlic. It's almost kind of amazing how much garlic you can put in salsa. So if I am using garlic I bought at the farmer's market, I would use about a half or a third as much garlic. It's so sharp, so strong. Once I bought bulbs of garlic that were so incredibly sharp compared to Durley chopped garlic that I had to quadruple the rest of my pesto recipe in order to make everything work out. But just as a matter of how much time I have to spend, one of my least favorite things to do is chopping garlic and peeling garlic. So I use Durley, but that means I have to use more. So I put in about 3/4 of a jar of Durley chopped garlic just there, and when I taste it in a few hours, it may even need more. Who knows? Maybe I'll pick up a head at the farmer's market. We'll see. But there's a ton of garlic in salsa. Okay, so we're going to let this simmer away. I've turned it up to 4 since I'm awake now, and I can tend to it. I've raised the temperature a little bit, and onward it's going to go. I'm going to say for like at least another, 10 or 12 hours, if not a whole entire day, overnight. It is now almost 7 o'clock, so this salsa has been cooking for 26 hours. It's easily going to cook overnight tonight. I will tell you that since I last spoke to you, I don't know, 9 hours ago or something, I have added 5 more green peppers. I did add like 10 jalapenos. I was feeling all daring and risky, so I added 10 jalapenos. I was wearing gloves, of course, and a whole entire package of cilantro leaf. I could pick some wild from my garden, but it's all gone to seed, so I actually used some dried cilantro leaf. So in addition, oh, and 2 full bulbs, 2 full heads of heirloom garlic that I bought at the farmer's market. The 5 green peppers that I put in this afternoon were also from the farmer's market, and I could not believe the difference in texture, the crunchiness and the crispiness of the farmer's market peppers compared to the ones that I had purchased at the grocery store. It was like night and day. So I put in 5 of those. They were fabulous. 2 full heads of heirloom garlic, very sharp, very strong. Another whole big onion. Another whack of tomatoes, and what else did I put in? Oh, cilantro leaf. So I think that this is liquidy enough that I'm going to let it cook overnight for a second night. I'll turn the temperature down. It's almost at 4 right now. I'm going to turn it down to 3. I'm going to let it cook overnight, and I'll stir it a couple of times in the night, and then in the morning I will get it ready to put it into jars and store it. But I think that this is working its way up to be maybe one of the best batches of salsa I've made, well, certainly this year, if not ever, but it is quite delicious, really flavorful. It's going to be a bit on the spicy side, but that's awesome. I'll just label it that way so little kids won't try to eat it. And so here we are at the 26-hour mark. We'll see what happens in the morning when we're at like the 48-hour mark. Salsa takes time. Good morning on day 3. We're back with our pot full of salsa, our vat of salsa. It cooked all the way through the night for the second night. So that means that the salsa has been on the stove at a simmer, never less than a simmer, for 3 days and 2 full nights. And I have tested it. It is delicious and it's ready to go. I've got the canning kettle heating up over here. I'm going to put it into jars and process it. I won't show you that process. I'll do a separate canning video, but this salsa is ready to get canned. I did want to point out that one of the ways that I know things are ready, that things are where they need to be, is that I use a little dish I sample throughout, okay? I check it regularly throughout the process. I let this cool because I can't really test for flavors and saltiness and garlic and so forth when things are so hot that you can barely focus on the flavor of them. So I let this cool and I test it and see if the recipe needs any adjustment between the extra jalapenos that I don't normally put in, the coriander flake, which was a great addition. This has turned out to be probably one of the best batches I've ever made. And actually, I came up with a new test for salsa. It's the spoon test. I can stand up a spoon in my salsa. That's a pretty thick batch of salsa. So it turned out great, just enough spiciness, lots of garlic, 3 days of cooking. Time is the secret missing ingredient to most really great recipes, and I have the luxury and the pans to take the time, and so it really improves the recipe. So here you go, basic salsa, tomatoes, onions, peppers, and garlic. Extra special salsa, adding jalapenos and coriander. I'll make sure to label the jar so that I don't accidentally feed this to little kids who won't appreciate the jalapeno. But generally speaking, what a great way to spend a weekend in Ontario, enjoying the bounty that God gave to us here, and we're so lucky to have it. I hope that this video will give you confidence to try some of this yourself, to can some things yourself, and to share it with your loved ones all through the winter when this will just be dim memory. The tomato fields will be dim memory at Christmas time in January and February. So Rita Smith, #1 Food Fairy, signing off. Be confident in the kitchen. Have fun cooking for your family.
I'm so sick of reality TV. I'm so tired of my girlfriend.